once again, guys, when this releases, it will be around Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is about food. My favorite food person is Bianca. So you're welcome. I've brought her back. Get excited. Fertility and food. Could you be more interested?
The fertility diet. It's the best.
Fertility diet.
But I also think that it's not the fertility diet. It's just like the longevity diet.
Oh my God.
The feel-good diet.
Speaking my language. You know? The life.
Because I think that when you say fertility diet, or I say it, people think it's like just a small frame of their life. They have to eat this way. But also it's not a have to. You're going to want to because you'll feel so good.
Feel better.
But also thinking about it as like, this is my lifestyle takes the like heat off of it. Because then it's like, it's not pressure. It's just like, this is how I live.
Yes.
How I eat.
Well, that in particular is what I feel like a lot of fertility patients struggle with. Is that they have this mentality of how much longer do I have to live this way?
Yeah.
And so when they get a negative, it is that much more painful.
Totally.
Because they are living in a very unsustainable way.
Exactly. But it's like, there's so much advice out there that's just wildly unsustainable. It is.
Honestly?
But also then there's like bad advice. Like I just saw an article from Time magazine written by a dietitian that says like, it's like our processed food is bad as we think, like trying to make it sound like they're not as bad as we think, but they are. And that kind of stuff also gets into the mix too. So a lot of people are just confused and like feel like they can't do anything right because there's so much information of like, eat this, don't eat that. If you eat this, you're not going to get pregnant. If you eat that, you're not going to get pregnant. It's like, it doesn't need to be that deep. It can be something that like feels good while you do it. It shouldn't be punishing yourself to baby. You want to love yourself to baby, you know?
I 100%. I feel like dietitians that write that type of an article are just trying to get claps.
Get claps, and they're probably in the pocket of like some of these bigger corporations, I would imagine.
Oh, she's bringing it.
That's what I think. I mean, I hope a black SUV isn't parked outside of my house.
Oh my God.
At the end of this interview, but
they're outside right now.
I know. But I think that's really part of it, you know? Because like there was also maybe a year ago on TikTok, a dietitian and a bunch of dietitians were out there saying that Diet Coke was actually good for your gut. Yeah.
I cannot.
Yeah. I like have to like put my phone down and just like step away from the internet when I see stuff like that. Because I just don't want to get in a tussle online with a stranger. But it's also like, that is the craziest thing. Like if you're going to have a Diet Coke, go ahead. But by no means think that you're doing something good for your gut. Like that's just bananas.
Or any part of you.
Yeah.
That would be like
it's
me
a treat.
Having a cigarette and being like, but at least I'm breathing, right?
Yeah, at least it's appetite suppressant or whatever. Like
Deep
there's
breathing.
A lot of ways we can like justify bad things, but part of the fertility diet or any diet is just being honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like when I'm working with clients, the first thing I say is like, run me through a full day, because there's no bad. It's just if it's something that we need to build a wall around so it doesn't have like a spill off effect to the rest of your like life or diet, then we do that. But you have to be honest with yourself first.
Right now, people don't want to do hard things.
No.
And unfortunately, something that I've noticed with patients is tremendous success with incorporating more exercise. People hate that.
It's true.
They hate it so much, but I have to be honest.
It's true. I mean, as someone who is like, I'm not a big exercise person. Like I just try and take like 10K steps a day if I can do it. Like
10K is a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a significant amount of exercise.
But like, I don't view it as exercise. And that's sort of like my point is there's like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, I don't like exercise. But it's like, maybe you just haven't found the thing that you like.
Right.
I don't run for anything but my life. So that's not my exercise. But I love to walk. I like lifting weights. So I'll do that.
But at least you were searching for it.
Exactly. You got to go on the hunt.
And people are not.
No.
Because they're told it does not matter.
Yeah.
And it does.
It does. And also, I think when we remove the aesthetic from it, like I'm working out to be snatched for the summer, because those are like byproducts, like skinniness, or if that's not skinniness, but I know that word can be triggering, but just like an aesthetic from exercise is something that is a byproduct of all the other things you get. Your digestion becomes better. Your sleep is better. Your immunity is better. You're stronger. Your fertility gets better. And then as a byproduct of that, you know, your weight response.
Right.
But it's like if you make that the focus and it takes so long to arrive, you lose steam. But if you're like, I'm doing this for my digestion, like you feel that within a week.
You
know?
feel that by that evening.
Exactly.
You're not restless in bed.
Exactly. So I think that's where people have to just like change the mindset.
Yeah.
You know?
I concur.
Concur.
And so this is the thing though, a lot of what we're trying to implement and encourage, a lot of the time I feel like we're going up against a wall.
Totally.
Because the fertility clinics are saying exercise doesn't matter, even though studies indicate that it does. They say that inflammation doesn't matter unless it's something that they are testing for.
Exactly. And they'll test you after you've spent however much money on a failed round of IUI or IVF. And then it's like, well, now it behooves you to say that. But before, like, test me before.
100%.
But they want the ching ching.
Yes. And they want to see what works, question mark. Like how little can be done.
Exactly. The bare minimum. Honestly, we are in a bare minimum epidemic in so many different ways, but especially there too. It's like they want to do the least and they're promising you the most. And then when they don't get it, then the blame comes back to the woman. Where it's like, well, it must be your eggs, you're old, it must be this, it must be that. But it's like, well, we don't know what it is because you haven't tested me.
One of the things that I got most frustrated with, and I actually talk about this in the Ozempic episode, is that physicians are telling patients, your lifestyle doesn't matter, what you eat doesn't matter, but then they'll turn around and prescribe you Ozempic. So if it doesn't matter, then why do we care about your inflammation when it comes to a medication?
Exactly. If there's a medication that can fix it,
you can have the same results
doing other things
with monitoring your diet.
Well, a lot of what I do as far as like helping people understand their blood sugar helps in the same way. I'm not saying what I do is Ozempic, but a lot of the same things happen when I do the work that I'm doing. You understand food sequencing, how to eat, how to behave in between meals, like what your plate should look like. People have less cravings.
Bianca, you are Ozempic minus the nausea.
Minus the nausea and the gastroparesis.
Yes.
But like I have clients who've done my blood sugar blueprint program who have lowered their A1C, no cravings, PCOS symptoms gone, like all of those things, inflammation completely down. But it's like Ozempic does that, but it also line yourself up for some pretty crazy side effects. And I'm not
insane. 80% are nauseous.
Exactly. And I'm not anti-Ozempic because I do think it's a medical miracle. But from a social perspective, I don't know if we've like really unpacked what the impact is going to be. Also, like on another front, it's like the body positivity movement is like out the window now.
I literally, that was my leading argument.
Yeah. And that's sad to me.
All of these influencers who are doing such good work around creating safe space and truly body positive, like caring for themselves without the obsession around weight. And now
that conversation is like dead.
It's over.
It's over. And it's, again, I'm not going to fault anyone for wanting to work on their aesthetic. That's like on you. But at the same time, it's like, oh, well, you didn't really care about body positivity because now you just like have this thing where you're like, fuck that. Pardon my language.
Exactly.
And it's like a little sus. But again, I think that if there's someone who has dealt with obesity their whole life and they have never been able to move the needle, something like Ozempic that shuts off the food noise and allows them to do the deep work of understanding, their obesity, their binging, all of that. I think that's beautiful. But like, if a woman has inflammation and she's, trying to get pregnant, throwing her on Ozempic so she loses the last 20 and lowers her inflammation, I don't think that's the way forward.
It's not. I really don't. You can't maintain that.
No.
You need to have something that you can maintain through pregnancy.
Exactly.
Like the impact of where you start on your pregnancy is huge.
Totally.
Like if you maintain activity through pregnancy, you will maintain that VO2 max.
Exactly.
Postpartum.
And you'll feel just better. Like, and I always say how you go into pregnancy is going to dictate your pregnancy. What happens in your pregnancy is going to dictate what happens in your postpartum. Like people like to sort of like fragment the segments, but it's like they're together.
They're
like
all
it's
together.
a holistic thing. We have to be thinking about that. But
lean mass in babies born to women who maintain normal body weight and exercise
exactly.
increases for their whole life.
Exactly. But again, I think the conversation around that is just like not happening anymore because there's something like Ozempic or Mounjaro, Wegovy, like all of them. It's like, I worry. I also worry about like the next gen of like women, especially that are seeing this and being like, oh, well, I don't have to learn how to eat. I don't have to learn about this or that. I'll just like go on Ozempic.
Well, the thing is, it's a lifetime medication. Like you're supposed to go on it and stay on it. Like it's being prescribed to children.
I saw that. And it like, that was another thing where I'm like, I have to put my phone down and just like leave the room because that's nuts to me. Because why aren't we teaching these children how to eat? Like, I think one of the reasons I say I teach people how to eat because it exists outside of a diet. You don't have to eat any way. Like, I mean, if you're vegan, we're probably gonna have a conversation. But other than that, it's about learning how to eat the food that you eat as opposed to being really prescriptive about a diet. But these children don't know that. They don't know vegetables. They don't know about fiber. They don't know about, peristalsis, like all these different things. And it's like, we should be teaching them that before we're saying, oh, well, just go on Ozempic.
Well, it's also a lot of the issues stemming from a lot of these kids are part of like lunch programs, breakfast programs. And the schools are not only not educating the kids on what they're eating, but they're also now feeding them this low cost option of like cereal, bagels, toast. And I can't fault them because they're trying to feed these kids.
They're trying to just make the dollars and cents work.
But if we taught kids that if you eat a higher fat meal, you don't have to eat as much.
Exactly.
That would be a great place to start.
Well, and I think it would ultimately be more economical for everybody involved. If their parents knew that, you could save on groceries if you want. And again, I just think that, often when you see a child with like obesity or even type 2 diabetes, which we're seeing so much now, that starts at home. Like, I think that it's like a lot of it is inherited habits. And so the focus being like on the kid and putting the kid on Ozempic, it's like, well, we're not really getting to the root of the problem because they go home and like they're not buying their food. Someone's buying it for them. So it's about educating the whole family. Like I always say, like if a client comes to me and says, oh, my daughter has PCOS, it's like, well, the whole house has it because the whole house has to change how they eat and how they behave because it's a household problem if a child is sick.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's like systemic in the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it's this misconception that starts right away with people being like, well, food that's good for you is expensive.
It's not.
I keep a bowl of pumpkin seeds on the kitchen table. Just, it's always there.
Yeah. Just loose, ready,
raw pumpkin seeds because high zinc, fiber, protein, fats. If they don't bother me being like, I'm hungry, I'm hungry.
Go to the table.
Pumpkin seeds. Eat it up. That way too, I don't worry about if they're going and playing with a friend that they have like nuts on their breath.
Yeah, exactly. They like kill their friend by accident. Damn.
I'm so stressed about that.
Yeah. I don't have kids yet, so I always forget about that. That it's like, you got to be really safe about that kind of stuff.
I'm nuts about nuts because I'm so stressed about murdering a friend.
Yeah, well, damn.
I got to be careful.
I mean, I think, I really wish that the narrative around eating healthy is so expensive would shift because that just creates a barrier right there because people don't even investigate it. They just think, well, it's expensive and like that's for rich people. But it's like, I'm not rich. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not rich. But
I'm 6 kids. I am also not
exactly.
Rich.
Even if you were rich with 6 kids, you're not. But finding bulk options, eating like, things like beans and legumes, but soaking them so they don't hurt your stomach. Ground beef is often a far more affordable protein option. Eggs, like we have to get creative. Eggs are like the best food.
And they just published a new study that children who eat an egg a day have a higher IQ.
I believe it.
3 months.
Really? I believe that. I always say to my clients, like, if you are trying to have a baby, you should be eating eggs. A lot of them.
Yeah.
It's like a fertility food. Eggs, avocados, like steak. I mean, I know I get a lot of heat from the vegan community because I'm always saying, eat steak, have butter, like have those things. I mean, again, we're not like having them all the time, but
Yeah.
a wide variety of like these really nutrient dense foods. That's like how we're going to get our body where we need it to be.
Like Greek yogurt, eggs, seeds.
Cottage cheese.
They're not expensive.
No. I mean, the thing is, though, it's like once something hits the trend, then it's expensive. Like Greek yogurt, it's coming down again, but cottage cheese is so expensive now because everyone's talking about how much protein it has.
I don't know why that is a surprise. I've been like literally fed cottage cheese by my grandmother since
I mean, I didn't like cottage cheese because I didn't like the curds, but then I started whipping it because it's the best way to do it.
Right.
And now I like love it.
I make it into a bread.
Oh?
Yeah. Like I make the eggs and cottage cheese flatbread.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
feed
all
it to the children. They don't know.
Well, of course they don't know.
They don't know.
They don't need to know.
They're like, I don't eat protein.
Exactly.
And I'm like, no, you don't.
It's like,
you
no,
eat
you
bread.
don't. Well, and that's the thing. I think too, like, you know,
lie.
Exactly,
lie to your kids.
Honestly, hide things and hide things. Lie if you need to. If they're like, I don't like avocado, mix it into something that they don't even know.
You're like, you're having pudding for dessert.
Exactly. There it is.
No avocado needed.
But yeah, no, I just feel like the narrative around eating healthy is often seen as like elitist, but it's not. It's an option that's available to everyone, but there's a reason why that narrative is like so pervasive because processed food companies like want it to be out there. Like I have seen so many like protein pizza crust, protein chips, protein cereal, and it's like have some eggs.
Have an egg.
Like, why are we putting protein in pizza crust? Protein chips, like, I literally was like, make it make sense. Like, this is so insane. But yeah, protein chips.
They're just putting protein now on everything.
Yeah.
Before, it was fat.
Exactly.
Now it's protein. And we're going to come around again to the beginning where we start really emphasizing fiber.
Oh, totally. But also it's like all of these things are in real food. Like if you don't eat processed food, you don't really have to worry about, okay, there's protein in it and then like what else is in it? Because yes, those chips have protein, but what else do they have? Probably artificial flavors, artificial colorings, like a lot of stuff that you don't want. But just because it has protein, you're going to be like, I want that thing.
It's a chip.
It's a chip.
So it's,
and honestly, eat a chip that tastes good.
It's a treat, but it's full of protein.
Exactly. And I think we have to stop deceiving ourselves into eating healthy. Like, let's just eat healthy. Like, why are we trying to make pizza crust a high protein option? It is a carbohydrate. Let's just own that. And if you want pizza, have it.
Have the real thing.
Have the real thing. Like, go for it so that you're not sitting there being like, well, that was kind of satisfying, but it had protein in it. Like,
not satisfying.
Serious. Not satisfying.
Like if there's cake and there's banana bread.
Well, I hate bananas, so I'm having cake.
I have the cake anyway.
Yeah.
But I would start out being like, well, I'm going to have this paleo banana bread.
Like, no.
Meanwhile, there's cake.
Exactly.
In the
and
fridge.
It's like, just have some like apple cider vinegar and water. That'll help balance your blood sugar 1 to 30 minutes before you eat the cake.
That's a good tip.
Have the cake. Yeah. It's like the hottest tip. Apple cider vinegar is great, but you don't want to overdo it. Like, because then it can affect your gut lining, which is bad for your fertility as well. So I always say to people, we have you want to employ a lot of different tools when you're doing things like that. But if you're drinking apple cider vinegar 3 times a day to mitigate a carb spike, we have to look at what you're eating. You know what I mean? We got to make some like changes there.
Yeah.
So, but again, people don't even want to have that conversation because they're like, well, I don't want to talk about health food. It's like, well, no, we're just talking about eating.
Yeah.
You know, when we change the narrative, it's like got to change the headspace about it.
It's very bizarre because it's something that we do all the time. And yet you have to really tiptoe around it.
I do.
I think you and I both have the same heat from the vegans.
Oh, so much heat. Like,
I don't care.
I don't care. I'm ready to go toe to toe. And it's like, I want you to know I have time for this.
But
like,
I also if you want to eat this way, I support you.
Well, you like it. I love it for you.
But you will feel terrible.
Yeah.
And the only patience, I said this on the Rainbow podcast.
Yeah.
The only patience, I cannot get pregnant are the vegans?
I honestly, if I'm someone who wants to work with me and they say they're vegan and they are like not going to change anything about that, I have to reevaluate whether I want to work with them or not, because I just feel like we're going to bump up against so much resistance. Like, what's the point in that? You need to go find someone that can help you. I don't know how they are going to, because of all the deficiencies that crop up and all of that. But I mean, who am I? I'm sure it's done in places.
I had one patient who consumed like an obscene number of supplements
Just to make up for the
just to make
veganism.
up for the veganism, only to find out that the majority of those supplements were packaged in a gelatin capsule.
And honestly, I love that for her.
But like,
You know, I love that she was getting a little bit of something, but also it's like all of these supplements to just like,
her cytokines were through the roof.
I bet. And her gut health was probably like,
I was like, what is this for? Like, tell me, what is it? If it's for, honestly, if it is for a religious observation, honestly, I can be like, okay.
If it's for religious observation, absolutely.
Okay.
And I know that there's vegetarianism that's for religious observation, which actually can work within vegetarian, but it's specifically vegan that is a struggle.
Tough. Yeah, it's tough.
But also I feel like it's also very dogmatic as well. So I know a lot of vegans that have sort of been vegan and now they're not. And part of the coming back to, you know, an omnivore life, it was like having to rewire their brain outside of, like, out of this dogmatic thought of like, I have to be vegan. I have to be vegan. Cause it's like, it doesn't work that well.
But it's also, I don't think a lot of them understand why they're doing it. Well, like if you look at animal standards and like the care, you can get ethically raised animals. Like my uncle was the CFO of Row Farms.
Oh my God.
And I went and visited their farm.
Yeah.
Anyone can. It's in Guelph. You can go and see what is happening with the animals, which is important. I will not eat meat that is from some random
and you can find that
factory in the middle of God knows where. Like, I will not. So then I guess I'm vegan. Do you know what I mean? But
and I also just think too, it's like we have to be able to square both the well-being of ourselves and also the well-being of the planet. And there is it's like a false notion that veganism comes with like, is like completely ethical. There's so many chemicals that are used. Also, you have to like ask yourself, do I feel good doing this? If not, there are ways to be ethical about being a meat eater. There is. But again, it's just people don't want to hear it. A lot of the animals
that are being raised for good quality meat have much better lives than animals that are just in the wild.
It's so true.
That have a better life than like a lot of the dogs and cats that are living within apartments that have no exposure to the outdoors.
Never go outside. But we also have to ask ourselves, like, is this cow going to grow up and go to college? Are they like going to start a family? Like, are they going to travel Europe on their gap year? Like, we have to be serious. No. It's true.
I don't know. I'm very partial.
But do you know what I mean? Like, I think that it's like, okay, then what? Like
I don't eat veal.
No.
You know what I mean?
I don't eat veal. No, I don't. I think that's an unethical.
That's unethical.
Sure. But like, yeah, I just sometimes I wonder. It's like, so what do we like? What is this animal to do other than that?
I look at it too, like very much from a health perspective. That if I have all these people who don't eat meat and they have so many deficiencies and they're doing so poorly, myself included. Like, I've been a vegan.
Oh, I was vegan for 6 months.
I have never been more ill.
It was the worst 6 months of my life.
Has never been worse.
Yeah.
I've never been more bloated. Like, I tried to be macrobiotic because it was
Madonna.
I honestly, it was post Peter perishing. I was like, I will never die.
Oh, but you went about it.
What can I eat to ensure that happens? I was like cooking rice with like a wooden spoon over like a freaking fire. It was ridiculous. And I've never felt worse. And so I was like, this can't be good for me.
Well, and it's like your skin is going to show it. Your gut is going to show it. You're going to sleep really poorly. Like, I've had a few clients who have type 2 diabetes And they're like, well, I was doing veganism because that's what I was told to do. And their numbers are like, their A1C is like 8.3, 9. As soon as we have them like starting to eat more animal products, we're like in the normal range. It's 5.4,
Right.
5.3. So again,
especially for women.
exactly. And the proof is in the pudding, man. Like, I just feel like sometimes when I'm getting like a lot of heat, it's like, prove to me that this is making everyone feel better. When you give me the proof, fine. But I have my own anecdotal evidence. So let's go with that.
I do think in Chinese medicine, like some patients do better on mostly plant-based, but they're all men. So it's like a excess syndrome pattern. And you typically will see it with kind of like your Bay Street crowd, where it's like the guys who have gout, basically, okay? Where they're like red wine, steak, like hamburgers for lunch.
Yeah.
Like, fine, put them on a salad diet for 30 days.
Of course they're going to respond
They
positively.
will do better. That is appropriate for them.
Yeah.
They're also not like building up a lining and shedding it every month.
No, they're...
So...
But I also think too, it's like, when you're just thinking about like eating meat, we have to also think about what's happening around that. Like, is that person eating meat, drinking red wine all the time, smoking cigars, being a sedentary person? Well, then yes, that is probably going to add a negative element to their life. But if it's someone who is eating has animal-based foods in their life, they're also exercising, they're hydrating really well, making sure to supplement correctly, like that then is a part of a healthy diet. So I feel like that's the issue too. People are like, well, there was a study around like don't eat meat, but like what else were those people doing? Like, I want to get to know like what was really going on in those studies, because it's like if that person was living a pretty terrible life from a health perspective and they were also eating a lot of meat, well, yes, that's bad. But if it's like a person is eating meat but doing all of these things to really promote health and longevity, then I would argue that the results would be different.
It's also like CLA content of grass-fed steak compared to that of a cow that was fed exclusively grains is very different.
Very different.
So you can actually get omega-3s from animals that were eating grass.
Yeah.
It's the same content as fish.
Well, it's also like what the animal eats, like ostensibly you eat as well.
Exactly.
You know, that's like such a true point. But yeah, I just think that, again, when you say things like grass-fed and when we say like organic, that makes a lot of people sort of like get their back up against the wall. Like, well, I can't afford that. And it's like, okay, well, start where you can afford things. Eggs. Very approachable, very affordable. Organic dairy, grass-fed dairy, also more approachable than, say, like a grass-fed steak. Like, let's start there. Or find a butcher that you can ask questions to.
Or your healthy eggs are going to be cheaper than your grain-fed steak.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So like making the right choices.
Exactly. But understanding which choices to make. Like, the information is intentionally muddied out there and hard to find and hard to put together, because then people just get really frustrated and they're like, well, screw it. I'm just going to eat the processed stuff.
Yeah.
I know.
It's seen as a treat.
Yeah. But also I noticed too, back on the Ozempic thing, certain companies, starts with an N. I don't want anyone to get in trouble here. Oh
my God, the SUVs.
Yeah,
They're
the
pulling
SUVs.
up.
But they are now making food specific for people with taking Ozempic.
Well, like when you read the Ozempic website about what one should eat due to the nausea that it has created, it's bland carbohydrate. And but you're like, what are you trying to avoid?
Like, that's the thing that will spike your blood sugar.
Exactly.
And then, so you're giving me this drug, but then you're telling me to eat this thing that will spike my blood sugar.
Yeah.
So say I go off the Ozempic, I'm still going to eat that thing.
Yeah.
And then be like, well, I can't do it without the Ozempic. Like, my body can't do it. And it's like, well, it was never given the opportunity to do it.
You were set up to fail. Poor Ozempic, honestly, if you go to their website, it very specifically says not intended for weight loss. Weight loss may occur.
Yeah.
14 pounds is the average loss of what they think is normal on the medication.
Oh.
That's what it was never intended as a weight loss drug.
It was supposed to be for type 2 diabetes.
It's for
That's
diabetes.
What it's intended for. But there's also like Wegovy and Mounjaro are specifically for weight loss. But I think those are tirzepatides, not semaglutides.
And but the issue becomes, again, the acceptance of taking something now specifically for weight loss.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what, like, I mean,
what is this? I genuinely don't get it why people hate movement. I genuinely don't understand.
It's because you have to change your life. That's what it is.
But
like, a lot of people might want they want to live the way they are, but have the results of like their desire.
I think though a lot of the time people are just so tired.
Well, yeah.
Because they've taken such bad care of themselves.
Totally.
That if they made one tiny tick in 1/4 turn of their life, like I have one woman, she's amazing. She's pregnant now. I'm so thrilled.
Hooray.
The number one thing was I forced her to walk.
That's all it has to be, really.
I was like, let's start with 10 minutes. She was like, that's not enough. I was like, let's start.
Yeah.
The 10 minutes. She'd get into the 10-minute. Oh, turn into 15. Oh, you know what? 15's not so bad.
Exactly.
Now it's 20. Oh, what do you know? I'm sleeping better. Oh, what do you know? I'm digesting food. I'm not constipated all the time.
What do you know? My period's showing up on time. I'm ovulating regularly. Like, walking is honestly that girl. I say it all the time. Throw some weights on if you want to make it like more intense.
Cute,
but walking is like an excellent place for anybody to start.
Yeah.
And like you said, you say I'll do 10 minutes, you end up doing 20. You say you'll do 20, you end up doing 30.
But yesterday she shows up. She's like, I walked for an hour last night with my husband and we had a great time. And I'm like, because you now have the energy from your 10 minutes to your hour.
Totally.
And this is now how you identify.
Exactly. And I always say to people, give it 21 to 30 days. Because on day 9, you might be like, oh, I don't want to walk. This is the worst. Like, I hate walking, blah, blah, blah. But like, if you keep going, by day 21, when you don't walk, you will notice it. You won't sleep as well. You will feel outside of yourself. And that is when you know, okay, now I identify as a new person. But it's not going to happen overnight. Like, people want the results overnight. And I used to be like that too. But it's like, you have to start somewhere. Everyone starts at 0 sometimes.
Yeah.
But you don't stay there as long as you consistency is like the whole point. Like, if you're consistent with doing all the things you talk about, I talk about, it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be consistent. Once you do that, it's like it becomes your lifestyle, because that's what consistency breeds, a new lifestyle.
No, I'm obsessed with your content because I feel like it's very approachable, and I feel like anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. And it's like,
the most squeamish person I have as a patient is now making your egg lattes.
Oh, really?
She is queen of the squeam.
Love that.
And she is whipping eggs.
But you know what? It's like the best latte ever. It's the creamiest latte you'll ever have. Like, I say that to people all the time. Like, you have to just open yourself up to all of these things, because I'm just trying to make it easy for people to get more protein, to eat more eggs if they don't like to eat eggs. Like, I'm trying to get them to understand that, like, if you don't like cottage cheese, whip it and then add it to yogurt. So then it tastes like yogurt, but you're getting the protein from the cottage cheese.
Yeah, that's such a good trick.
You know, like, those little things can mean a really big shift for people, but you have to open yourself up to it. Like, if I have someone who, like, I'm working with and they're just like, nope, I don't do this. Nope, I don't do that. It's kind of like, well,
then you're going to stay the same.
Exactly. Like, some people think the work isn't just like signing up for coaching or coming for acupuncture, which, I mean, that is a part of the work. But
no, but it's not.
But it's not all of it. Like,
it's 10%.
Exactly.
It's the icing.
Exactly. And all the other stuff is like, I can tell you what to do, but you have to, like, do it.
Yeah.
You know?
The eating. The movement. The sleeping. That's the cake.
That's exactly. But again, I think we also live in a quick fix world. Like, we live in the Ozempic era where people are like, well, I could just do that and it would be like this.
It kills me though. Like the Ozempic and the IVF, because until a patient has been through where they realize, hey, that wasn't easy and that wasn't fast.
Exactly. Well, also the inconvenient truth about IVF is that it doesn't work if your body's not prepared to do it.
Or if it was never the right treatment for you in the first place.
There's so many people that come to me and they've done round and round and round of IVF, and it's like, well, why? And then they're like, I'm going to go do another round. It's like, but it's not working. So like we might need to do something else. But it's like
the rate of success is 44%.
Yeah.
It used to be 76.
Really?
Do you know why that stat has dropped? There's a lot of people who will argue that it's about maternal age or sperm quality. It's because it's being prescribed as a cure-all, and there's insufficient testing.
Totally.
And therefore, non-tailored approaches to fertility.
If someone is immunocompromised, to just throw them onto IVF is probably the worst thing that you could do for them.
Or the number of endo patients that are now being given obscene amounts of estrogen.
Yeah.
And then once their IVF hasn't worked and they now have significantly larger endometriomas, they're like, well, now you're going to need surgery.
Well, exactly. They're like, okay, well, now we need to do surgery to fix the problem that we helped create. And again, the blame
they've never seen before.
The blame goes back onto the woman.
Yeah.
And that's just like not fair.
No, because now you're waiting ages for this quick fix. Now you're waiting for your surgery referral.
Exactly.
It's and making me crazy.
While thinking like, I'm terrible, I'm broken, I'm this, I'm that, which is not good for you either. Like, I don't know. The fertility clinic stuff is just, it's such a dark scene.
I just had coffee with a REI, and quite literally I said to her, I have never been more depressed with your industry in my life. And she said, yeah, well, it's gonna change. How? The number of men who were told by one REI who actually had no idea what he or she was talking about when they said that it doesn't matter if you smoke THC, it doesn't matter if you take your antioxidants, it doesn't matter if you are exposing your genitalia to hot baths and showers. Like, doesn't matter. We can overcome it all with ICSI. That's just, and they'll hang on to that. They're like, well, remember when that time that this doctor said this to me?
Oh.
And then I am like, but okay, but here are all these studies.
And it's also like, are you getting the result you want doing the thing that you're doing still? If you're not, we have to do something different. And like, that's the thing that I think I bump up against all the time too. It's like, well, I was told to do this and I'm doing this. And it's like, well, how's that working? If you're on my page, on my Instagram and looking at my content, it's probably not working all that well. So let's do something different. But like I said, a lot of people want the results. They don't necessarily want to do all of the things you have to do. But a lot of people say to me, you do so many things for your health every day. Doesn't feel like it anymore.
Right.
Because it's like my lifestyle.
It's also a lot of the things that you're doing they seem like work because it's different.
It's different. But once it becomes your lifestyle, like I just get up and make an egg yolk latte because that's what I do. I walk 10K steps a day because that's like what I do. Like I know how to get them in a day. At the beginning, did I know I had to put some intention toward it? But like, that's just like life.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, this Ozempic era has created like a desire for a quick fix.
Well, it's detrimental, like to the fact, like looking once again at sperm health, for example. I just had this really fascinating conversation with the same REI about how in a DNA fragmented sperm sample, if the sample, like let's say this patient makes euploid embryos with her husband's fragmented sperm.
Yeah.
The higher the fragmentation, the lower the likelihood of that euploid embryo implanting and becoming a successful pregnancy. People think, okay, great, I made euploids. Frag doesn't matter anymore.
Well, no, but it does.
Incorrect. That directly correlates. She said that in their study, frag that was over 50%, 0 embryos made it into a live birth scenario.
Really?
So I've got all of these REIs that are telling patients, just do ICSI. Oh, look, it made a euploid embryo, therefore it doesn't matter. Well, clearly something at a level that we have yet to understand or examine is happening.
Yeah.
Therefore, and the issue is that frag is mostly, if not entirely, connected to lifestyle.
100%.
Which is
Especially
something
like,
you can't spend money on.
well, but also too, you know, I think now we're talking more about male factor infertility or fertility, however you want to phrase it. But it's like they don't even test all the things, you know?
No,
And
especially if your
that's
clinic, when you go to your clinic, you make sure that you ask, do you guys do DNA frag here? Because the majority of them don't.
So it's like if they don't know that metric, then again, if it doesn't work, they're going to say that it was the egg's fault.
100.
They're going to say it's the woman's fault. Your eggs are old. Now let's do donor eggs. The amount of people that are being pushed donor eggs is like it feels criminal at this point.
Well, it's bananas.
Because it's like, but we haven't done all the things.
Well, I have a patient who's doing donor eggs right now with her husband's highly fragmented sperm.
Damn.
And we have had 0 successful transfers thus far.
Which is, but like that's.
But now it's her lining that's the problem.
Well,
it looks great, but maybe it's the issue.
And then it's like they're just like taking stabs in the dark, but always at the woman.
Yeah.
Always.
100%.
But you know, it's like, you know, art as in assisted reproductive technologies always imitates life, where it's like women take the heat in so many different things, and in this specific area as well. Like, you know, I've had clients where it's like they're really struggling, and it's like, well, what's the sperm saying? They're like, oh, well, they haven't tested it yet. Like, what?
I know.
Like, that's crazy to me, because that would be like what I would think to do. Like,
number one.
Yeah.
Before even a sono.
Yes.
Let me see if there's anything even worth working.
Exactly. And also the idea that, you know, you go to a clinic and they're like, oh, well, do you smoke? Do you drink? And that's all they ask. But it's like, if you take a good donor egg and you put it into a body that's highly inflamed, blood sugar's never balanced, gut is off, so nutrient absorption is not where it needs to be, liver is bad, so we're not processing toxins out of our body, that good egg is still not going to make it.
What makes me crazy is that it's like when they're having their conversation with the REI after it hasn't worked, it's like, well, I just don't know.
Oh,
we have no idea. We don't know.
The unexplained.
I'm like, you're falling apart.
Exactly. Well, I had a client and she had done 2 rounds of IVF, had type 2 diabetes. Her A1C was like 10, had never been below like 9. And they're still like, let's just keep doing the IVF. It's like, well, no, we have to get that together before we can even consider doing any of these things. Because one, the IVF is not helping you. At this point, it's probably adding to your inflammatory load. And you also don't know how to eat to be healthy. Pregnancy is fertility, I always say, is like a luxury. It's a luxury function in the body. When the body is trying to have immunity, good digestion, all of these things, it's taking resources from wherever it can. Fertility is probably one of the places it's going to take it from. And it's like, so we have to make sure those areas are well funded so the energy can go back to fertility and reproductive health. But it's like, you'll go to a clinic and they'll say that doesn't matter. I actually know, she wasn't a client, but they ended up going with surrogacy, but her husband was a doctor and kept telling her food and diet don't matter, food and diet don't matter. But it's like, what do you know? If food and diet didn't matter, then like, what? It made me infuriated. I mean, they have a beautiful family now. I'm so happy for them. But at the same time, they could have spared themselves heartbreak that he was honestly causing himself.
100%. Well, that's also just, it makes no sense.
No.
How could you possibly say that food, what you are made up from,
exactly,
doesn't matter?
It's crazy to me. It really is. Like, sometimes I'm just like, do they not know, or do they know and they just don't care? That's my curiosity.
No, they don't know.
They don't know.
They view the world from a very fragmented place. Like the way that medicine is taught now. Even when I start having conversations with, I have a lot of immune patients, and a lot of reproductive immunology is stemming from trauma.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the patients I'm now referring to see therapists.
Yeah.
And REIs are saying, oh, that doesn't matter. They can go to therapy to discuss how, IVF might impact them. Like, but they may not even need IVF
if they do the
therapy.
I mean, I also think it's like, who are they to shit on other medicine?
Well,
therapy is medicine too.
Like lupus, for example. I have lupus. Women who have PTSD are 3 times more likely to get diagnosed with
Absolutely.
lupus.
Autoimmune diseases occur more frequently in women because of, I mean, you could say the trauma of being a woman sometimes, but just life can really impact a woman, especially because we go through so many fluctuations. And then if you're dealing with other things, it's like, of course, we would have more
Well, I
autoimmune
think a lot
diseases.
of the issue is that we also, and this is something I'm constantly frustrated by. Women don't stick with other women. So even a lot of the time, men, no matter what,
Oh, bro code is
they
like the
will
hardest thing to
stick
break,
with other
honestly.
men.
It's true.
And so I'll have patients describing to me, like I had an endo patient this morning who described an appointment where she went in and had a biopsy. No one prepared her for the biopsy. She wasn't even told she was getting one.
Oh,
Yeah, it was supposed to be an exam, and then they performed a biopsy without explaining to her what was happening. She has severe endometriosis.
oh my God.
She was in excruciating pain,
Yeah.
crying on the table. It was done by a doctor that was not her doctor and with no nurse present.
Like, I
That
feel
is
like
2024.
I also think, is that abusive?
It's 1000% abusive. And she's
Like,
explaining to this to me, and she's apologizing for being dramatic. We gaslight ourselves.
honestly, sometimes the calls coming from inside the house. I'll say that. But also, I actually watched, it was like a documentary from Australia, I believe, and they were talking about conditioning of children. How little girls by like the age of 6, they start like, so they gave all of these kids, boys and girls, this like really, really salty beverage. The boys took a sip and they're like, ew, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
Take it back.
Yes.
But by the age of 6, girl to be like, oh, that's okay. Like, maybe, and like apologizing for them giving that thing to them. And so that's a thing that women do all the time. We want to say sorry for that. Excuse me, may I? And it's like, no. Also, I like tell my clients, if you don't like your doctor, if you are not being treated properly, you have every single right to say, I'm leaving.
Clap back.
Clap back, or, come
And
up.
then have the female nurse in the room clap back for you.
Exactly. But sometimes they're ops too. Sometimes the female nurses are in cahoots with the other guys. So
This is my problem.
you've got to be wary. Not all kinfolk are your folk.
We need to pull together.
It's true. But I mean, a divided entity is easier to fall.
For sure.
So that's why it is like women supporting women in some cases, it's like, that's a load of shit.
Yeah.
And
No.
because like there's female doctors that are the worst.
There's
the most
clinics
abusive.
that is how they market themselves. So
female led, and then you go there and
we're all female.
Yeah, and you're treated even worse.
100%.
Yeah.
You are the worst, in
Exactly.
fact, because we believed you.
Exactly. It's like you almost feel even more betrayed. You're just like, I expected this from a man, but not a woman.
100%.
But that's the thing. Like, I've had clients say, well, I have a female doctor. She's like, all right. And it's like, just because she's a female doesn't mean that she's looking out for you.
No.
Like, know that. But I saw and this is where TikTok is actually good, there was a girl who has like a lot of medical things, and she just makes a binder. Everything that happens, she gets a printout, puts it in the binder, because they try and gaslight her and say, you haven't had that test. You haven't done this. And she'll be like, actually, opens the page. I had it this day. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I guess you did. But it's like, if you go in there and you're like ready, armed, ready, you've got your shit together, they can't come for you like they can come for someone who is not in that position. Like, you have to be ready for them. And it's like unfortunate that you have to have such a like your battle armor ready to go just to go to your doctor to get care. But unfortunately, that's just like the state that we're in.
Okay, well, since I like headlined this with it being like a Thanksgiving themed episode, let's talk about what people can do to mitigate the harm around having a cocktail or a glass of wine.
I would say that, one, make sure that you're eating when you're drinking. Drinks on an empty stomach are like the worst thing to do, like, ever. I would also say, like, the thing about alcohol is it's your blood sugar that we're also concerned with, but also the inflammation that's caused. So you have to be thinking about, how do I balance my blood sugar in this event? And that's eating first. Or eating while you're drinking, like just don't ever drink on an empty stomach, bad news. And then when you're thinking about the inflammation, then taking like a supplement like turmeric, making sure you're drinking lemon in your water like all week around that. But again, I just feel like if you're having drinks on a long weekend, we're all right. Do what you can, make sure you're eating, get a good night's sleep, hydrate, all the things you hear. But it's like, it's when you're binging multiple times a week or week after week after week, like that's when we're running into issues. But the long weekend, like I think there's an element of trying for a baby that people think you have to just stop living life. That's not the case. That actually, I feel like makes it worse and harder and like all of that. So instead, get your turmeric pills, get a castor oil pack, you can wear it on your liver. So it'll help your liver as well. Eat before you drink. Make sure it's got like protein, some fat, some fiber.
You know any magical supplements I could take? Because I don't want to hang out with castor oil on me.
Well,
What can I pop?
milk thistle's great.
Okay.
Turmeric is great.
Okay.
But honestly, the best thing you can do for your liver is eat a whole food diet free of processed food. Honestly, if you are eating a whole food diet free of processed food and your like beauty care routine is not super intense with like all of the like stuff,
Parabens and whatnot.
parabens and all that, and that's like the best thing you can do for your liver. Like
Eat clean, wear clean, clean, clean.
clean.
Clean,
And then enjoy yourself, but be moderate. Like again, if you're gonna go and like binge drink 2 nights out of every weekend, we gotta talk. But if you're having a long weekend, please enjoy yourself.
I can't just activated charcoal myself out of a
activated
binge
charcoal. You want to
drinking
be wary of that
coma?
because
I don't do that.
But a lot of
Yes.
people do, and so I'm just gonna say, do not do that. It really affects with your nutrient absorption in your gut.
Right.
It just
Yeah, it's intended for like Tylenol, acetaminophen, and
well, and also it's like if you get
acetaminophen.
food poisoning or you have like a foodborne illness, activated charcoal, absolutely go for it because that's gonna help. But also after that, you're gonna have to replenish the shit out of your gut because it does have it does
Porous.
a number. Exactly, it's very porous.
Sucks it in.
Exactly, it sucks it in. But that's good when you have like a foodborne illness or something because remove it. But
Yeah.
also you have to think about replenishment. I just like want people to understand that like there is no quick fix juice cleanse detox kit that's going to do more for you than a clean processed food free diet, a clean like beauty care routine, and just also like really unpacking, like you said, the trauma that you have, going to therapy. Like it's all the things, it's holistic. It's not just one thing. Like it's so Western medicine to be like, what's the one thing that I do? It's not just one thing, it's all the things.
So like 80% of the time, try to be as clean as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of that wretched, it starts with the egg book. My fucking least favorite book.
That's your least favorite book?
Yeah, I hate it.
Wow.
It's egg shaming.
It is egg shaming for real.
It is anecdotal for the most part. Like you're gonna be the study. Like the number of patients I have where they have an egg retrieval and it goes well, and then they do the exact same thing the next month and they have an egg retrieval and it goes poorly. Like that has nothing to do
Well, and I just think
with your clean lifestyle.
No.
Your glass water, your
it's all the
avoiding
things.
any toxicity. Like you live in Toronto.
Yeah, babe. I'm also from Edmonton, Alberta, where it's like refinery stack city.
Like
So there's some things you just can't avoid, but honestly, the best thing you can do, like when you think about all the things we don't have control over,
yeah.
and then if you are adding to that by how you live and how you eat, that's where the problem comes in. But it's like if we know that there's things we can't control, but the things we can control, we are very mindful of. That's how you move the needle.
100.
100.
Thank you so much for listening this week. Every time that you listen, you share, you rate, you review, it helps boost our show, which not only gives me the motivation to carry forth, but also helps attract new guests with new information. So thank you so much. Please don't forget, again, rate, review, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll talk to you soon on the next episode.